Yeah. All right. Even though the clock at the back of the room says it's 5 to 1, my atomic clock says it's 1 o'clock, so we're going to start on atomic time. Welcome to the October 16th, 2025 meeting of the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission. A link to view this meeting has been provided on the Commission's website. Before we begin, I just want to say thank you to the General Assembly for hosting our meetings this week. Hayden, can you please take a roll call?
Commissioner Carter, Commissioner Griscom, here. Commissioner Lehrman, Commissioner Levine, Commissioner Marino, here. Commissioner Patterson, here. Commissioner Eddie Smith, here. Commissioner Lauren Smith, here. Chair Richards,
here.
Madam Chair, you have 6 members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. In accordance with Commission policy, Commissioners Carter, Lehrman, and Levine have previously notified us of their absences and are excused. I would also like to take a moment to introduce and welcome our newest commissioner, Tom Marino from Memphis. We're all very glad to have you on board and looking forward to getting to know you better, and we appreciate your willingness to serve. All right, are there any opening comments from any commissioners? Seeing none, today the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission will begin with reports from our committee meetings last week. From the Business Operations Committee, we will hear 2 budget updates from Director of Finance and Operations, Lawrence Walker. From the School Performance and Accountability Committee, we will hear a school year 25-26 school year update and the TISA Accountability Report update from Deputy Director of Authorizing, Maggie Lund. And from the Rules, Policy, and Governance Committee, General Counsel Ashley Thomas will present 1 LEA policy update, 2 Commission policy updates, and 2 Commission rules on final reading. Following the reports from committees, we will hear an update on our strategic plan from Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Pam Lehman, and an operational update from our Executive Director, Tess Stovall. We will then move into our New Start appeals, beginning with Jackson Museum School, followed by Rocket Ship Tennessee number 4. We will then recess until tomorrow for the last 4 New Start appeals. Do we have any questions or comments from the commissioners concerning the agenda?
Move its approval. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? All right, the ayes have it and the agenda is approved. The minutes of the special called meeting held on August 27th, 2025 have been provided. Does anyone have any edits to make regarding prior minutes before we proceed?
Move their approval. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it and the minutes are approved. In accordance with Commission Policy 1.200, we have reserved time for up to 30 minutes of public comment. Hayden, can you please let us know how many written comments were submitted and introduce any individuals who have registered for public comment?
Madam Chair, we did not have anyone register and did not have any written comments submitted.
Okay, thank you, Hayden. We will now hear a report from our Business Operations Committee. Since Commissioner Carter is absent, I will give the report of the committee head. In the Business Operations Committee, we heard budget updates from Director of Finance and Operations, Lawrence Walker, and operational updates from Executive Director Tess Stovall. Lawrence Walker, you are recognized.
Thanks, Chair Richards. During our Business Operations Committee, we covered several key operational updates for the Commission. First, Executive Director Stovall discussed our new Commission staff additions. Natasha Teal, Manager of Data and Operations, and Andre Manetta, Authorizing Project Coordinator. As mentioned prior, there are 3 additional vacant positions that will be assessed after the appeal cycle. Additionally, she discussed our office space on the 8th floor of David Crockett. That space has been completely built out, and it seats 28 seating areas for staff expansion. Now, with this expansion, there's no additional space on the 8th floor or within the building. Next, the commission completed its first budget hearing with Finance and Administration regarding the FY27 governor's budget. We did that last month. We did request additional budget authority to recognize additional revenue and operational expenditures related to our growing enrollment, but again, we did not request any additional positions, and that's due to the vacancies just mentioned. Also, during the committee meeting, I provided updates regarding the agency's FY26 budget to actuals and our current grant status. We're expecting to receive our first true-up for ADM and budgeted revenue this month, which will result in adjustments for our state and local pass-through funds and our authorizer fee projections. As for grants, we are expecting to administer more than $8 million in grants to schools. Activities are underway and schools have begun to draw down funds. We'll provide updates on any material changes during the January meeting. And I'm happy to take any questions or provide any further detail.
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Smith?
And no questions. I was listening in on the call a couple weeks ago. I had to take another call for work. But I just want to commend you on, taking over this position over the last year, just the great work you've done. The seamless transition, that's a testament to yourself as well as to Tess and our staff of just how seamless when one vacancy comes up that everything keeps going. So thank you to you, Lawrence, and Tess. Thank you for your leadership over the staff as you all have just continued to move unimpededly this last year.
Thank you for those comments. I'm sure we all share them. I know I do. And we look forward to continuing to see this hard work as we go through the budget year. Are there any other questions before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Our next item on our agenda is a report from the School Performance and Accountability Committee. Commissioner Terrence Patterson, I'd like to recognize you to provide the report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Richards. The committee heard updates on the Opportunity Charter Schools Performance Framework, the 25-26 school year, and also voted on the TISA Accountability Report. I'd like to recognize our Deputy Director of Authorizing, Maggie Lund, for these items.
Thank you, Chair Patterson. As you mentioned, Executive Director Stovall provided an update on the TISA Accountability Report. I then provided an update on school year 25-26. This update included a report on enrollment for new and expanding schools within the Commission's portfolio. I also outlined all available TVOS data that we have at this time for all the schools within our portfolio. I provided a data release timeline as well as timelines for the upcoming interim review of Nashville Collegiate Prep and additional intervention updates for some of the schools within our portfolio. And then finally, Beth provided an update regarding board engagement and amendments that we anticipate receiving. We also discussed during the School Performance and Accountability Committee the Opportunity Public Charter School Framework draft that we brought forth on first read. I provided an overview about the legislation that led to this performance framework. I talked through all the different iterations of stakeholder engagement and feedback and the process that we took in developing the draft framework that was in front of you. Basically, I went through the different 4 categories within the academic section, talked about where we, our guiding principles in which we designed the framework around, looking to ensure that we capture opportunities for innovation. We know that these schools have very intentional models to serve very intentional populations of students. And so with increasing weights and mission-specific goals within the framework to honor that innovation, also providing, instead of a comparative performance of time and model analysis, to really look at the effectiveness of the school in moving students towards proficiency. And then also still capturing reward points somewhat within our framework for growth. We keep our TVOS indicator there that as schools get higher levels of growth, we honor that in the framework by providing additional weight. I also went through at a high level the changes that were made to the state accountability letter grade calculation, which was adjusted for Opportunity Public Charter Schools, and how that is also represented within our framework. And then finally, I went through the organizational performance section of the framework and talked about one additional line item that we'll be adding that talks about enrollment requirements, as Opportunity Public Charter Schools are required to serve 75% at-risk youth. And so that line item captures the requirements there that are outlined in state law within our charter school performance framework. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Sorry, I got to try it again. Is there a motion to approve the TISA accountability report?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving this report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and the TISA accountability report is approved. The next item on our agenda today is a report from the Rules, Policy, and Governance Committee. Commissioner Lauren Smith, I'd like to recognize you to provide the report.
Thank you, Chair Richards. The committee voted on 1 LEA policy update, 2 commission policy updates, and 2 commission rule updates. I'd like to recognize General Counsel Ashley Thomas for these updates, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. As you stated, during the committee meeting last week, was it last week? We discussed several policy updates. I'll just go over those now. I know that the voting mechanism will be different for rules versus policies, but I just wanted to quickly go over that. The LEA policy update is to our employee rights policy. We amended language there to align with statutory updates related to paid parental leave. We discussed, as Dr. Lund explained, the commission policy 3.710, which would be the Opportunity Public Charter School framework. We also discussed on final reading Commission Policy 3.010, which is our new application review policy. There was a little bit of difference between first and final reading. We did remove duplicative language from Section 4 of the review language, and then there was a new language suggestion that the Commission will need to vote on. That suggestion is that application review will include a look back of 3 years of academic performance or the most recent interim performance. That would be considered a material consideration. I think what's important for the Commission to know with that particular item, statute gives a school or a sponsor the right to apply for replication after 1 year of academic performance, but it does not prevent us from introducing this language. So if the school has that information, this commission can of course look at it, and so that's what this language is looking to include. I don't know if you all want me to pause there for the policies and then go over the rules, but I'm happy to go over the rules now.
Let's go ahead and go through the rules, and then we'll take a vote on the policy and all the policies, and then we'll go through the rules because those need a separate vote.
Absolutely. So the first rule, I will say we conducted a rulemaking hearing on October 1st for both sets of rules. The first set of rules are our amendment appeal rules. There was one public comment received, and the Commission will need to decide if we're going to incorporate that change. The suggested change there was to introduce language around what is considered a material modification, specifically in the change in governance structure. To add language that states the assignment of a charter management organization would be considered something that can be pursued via the amendment petition process. The public comment indicated that this would further clarify that this is a pathway that an amendment can be filed to achieve that. As far as our New Start rules, we did not receive any public comments on those, so there was no substantive change between first and final reading with those. And I'm happy to take any questions on the policies or rules at this time.
Are there any questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to call these one at a time. First of all, is there a motion to approve LEA policy 5104 on first and final reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and LEA policy 5104 is approved. Is there a motion to approve Commission Policy 3.710 on first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that is Commission Policy 3710 is approved on first reading. Is there a motion to approve Commission Policy 3.010 on final reading?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and Commission Policy 3.010 is approved on final reading. Now, we're going to go on to the rules updates. Is there a motion to approve Commission Rule 1185-01-01-.04 on final reading?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Ashley?
Yes, I would like to ask if we are adopting that suggested language from the public comment. I will need to provide that in the next steps.
Are there any objections? I thought that was a good change.
And I apologize. When I heard you say it, I thought that was a recommendation coming from you for that to be included. So that's what I was making the motion on is with that recommendation from the public comments that be included in the motion that I am putting forth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. All right, Hayden, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Griscom.
Aye.
Commissioner Marino.
Aye.
Commissioner Patterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Eddie Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence Smith.
Aye.
Chair Richards.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes.
Okay, the ayes have it. And Rule 1185-01-01-.04 as amended is approved. All right, next is a motion to approve Commission Rule 1185-01-04 on final reading.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right.
Everybody at once.
Yep, no, all right. Hayden, will you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Griscom.
Aye.
Commissioner Marino. Commissioner Patterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Eddie Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Lawrence Smith.
Aye.
Chair Richards.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes.
All right, so Commission Rule 1185-01-04 is approved. And thank you, Ashley, and the rest of the staff for all the work on these policies and rules. All right, next we will hear an update on our strategic plan from Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Pam Lehman. Pam, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Richards. I'm excited to share an update on how the Commission is making progress on its strategic plan. So starting with strategic priority number 1, high-quality charter schools. This appeal cycle, we received 8 new start appeals. 2 of those appeals were heard in our August special called meeting, and the other 6 will be addressed today and tomorrow. We're also starting to collect feedback from stakeholders to help us improve future appeal cycles. And we also collaborated with the State Board of Education to develop rubrics and updated applications as part of Public Chapter 275. For strategic priority number 2, strong operational effectiveness, our teams have been busy providing technical assistance to schools, especially around serving special populations and data management. We've also, I mentioned this in our July meeting, but we've officially launched our trainings for schools for the 2025-26 school year. We have 25 total. We've already completed 18 of those trainings. Topics range from IEP documentation, school safety, student privacy, 504, a lot of different great topics for our staff to train schools on. And we have a few trainings to complete, but overall have received positive feedback from schools so far and are already thinking about how we can make some changes and make it even better for next year. For strategic priority number 3, community and stakeholder engagement, we rolled out a new online complaint system for members of the community and families so that they can easily share concerns. We also had a rulemaking hearing on proposed rules for charter school amendment appeals and approval of replication applications. And we've also shared a draft of the TISA accountability report to gather input before our November 1st submission deadline.
Commissioner Griscom, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, on the new complaint process, so we get a complaint, how do we follow up with our schools? Do we then bring them in, share with them that we've been contacted? What is the process? it relates to our schools.
Chair Richards, if you're comfortable, I'd like Maggie Stampley to come forward. She's the one who's manning this process, and just want to shout her out for, we've always had a complaint and grievance policy and process, but with 24 schools, we felt the need that we really needed to systemize how we were handling it. So Maggie, why don't you come forward to one of these microphones and sharing?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So the process currently is we have the form online that is in one of our drop-down tabs. When you get into it, you can see the steps to process. Throughout the steps, it defines what's appropriate for us to address and what's appropriate at the school level to address. And the new process links in our policy. It's all directly aligned to the policy. So currently, as it stands, there are 8 days for us to follow up directly with the school. So we first determine, is this appropriate for us to address? If the answer is yes, then we will follow up with the person who has filed the complaint as well as the school to seek additional information and documentation. And from there, we take next steps based on the information that we receive.
Okay, thank you. All right. Pam will resume your update.
And then finally, the last strategic priority, number 4, agency oversight. We submitted our fiscal year 2027 budget request, which reflects our agency's growth and the increased enrollment we're seeing. And we've also added 2 new benchmarks for our strategic plan to track progress on Public Chapter 275 and the Opportunity Public Schools School Performance Framework. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. We appreciate the update and your continuing hard work. Our final presentation today is an update from our Executive Director, Tess Stovall. Tess, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Richards. I'm going to provide a brief update, and then I'm also going to turn it to Hayden Pendergrass to give a brief update from the General Assembly. First, as we've noted, we want to welcome our latest 9th Commissioner from the West Grand Division, Tom Marino. We're thrilled to have you join us, and he will go through confirmation this spring with the General Assembly. I provide an update for our 2026 meeting dates that we have set. I do want to note that Chair Richards and I have talked about the July meeting being out of Nashville and targeting East Tennessee. So we will let Commissioner Eddie Smith and Commissioner Griscom fight it out as to where we're going to be. But I just wanted to go ahead and put that on your radar.
Let me just go ahead and say Tom's going to lose.
I do want to go ahead and put that on your radar that we are looking for.
All 3 of you.
Sorry, we're just having a little...
Okay. No. We are going to be looking to do our July meeting out of Nashville and in East Tennessee, so more information to come there. And then I'm going to turn it to Hayden to give you all a brief update on this week's activities with the General Assembly, as well as a forecast for the future.
So as most of you are aware, yesterday we were in front of the Government Operations Committee, the Joint Government Operations Committee twice. Yesterday morning we had our sunset hearing in front of the Joint Subcommittee. We ended up getting recommended for a 4-year extension, so that's slightly longer than our previous extensions, giving us a little break from the sunset cycle. The next step will be legislation will be filed in both the House and Senate during session, and that'll be heard by the full Government Operations Committees on both sides and debated. So I'll be continuing to work with the members of the committee to make sure that passes successfully. And then yesterday afternoon, we were in front of the committee for rule review. The emergency version of the replication rule that we just voted on was up for review in front of the committee. It ended up receiving a positive recommendation from both houses. So that rule will remain in force for the amount of time that emergency rule was filed for. And now that you've approved the permanent rule, that will be back up in front of government operations within the next few months. So I'll keep y'all updated on when that next hearing is going to be. As far as looking forward to next year and education legislation that we'll be keeping an eye on, kind of preliminarily and less important to our schools necessarily than traditional districts, but there's been some discussion around pre-K SPED funding and including that in the TISA formula. Now, some of our schools do offer pre-K, so we'll be keeping an eye on how exactly that shakes out. But like I said, that's something that more traditional districts would be keeping an even closer eye on. I would also expect some sort of bill dealing with the Memphis Shelby County school system. I know obviously that's been a big topic of discussion the last couple legislative sessions. They were going through a forensic audit this fall that the legislature had requested from the comptroller's office. So once the results of that come out, we'll probably have a better idea of what that legislation is going to look like. It's previously included us in some form or another, and also previously not included us in some form or another. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and whether or not we are going to end up playing any sort of role there. There's also been an ongoing K through 12 innovation joint committee that the legislature's convened several times this summer and fall. They've been talking through several different items, but the one probably most directly affecting our schools was related to testing and accountability. I know one of our school directors came up and testified during a hearing related to that, and kind of the general thoughts surrounding how the state handles accountability for schools and growth versus proficiency, things like that, and also the frequency of testing and how going forward what testing should look like and will look like. That's still also in the early stages, but we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then finally, less related to us, but more just from an overall education funding perspective, it appears that several members of the legislative leadership are looking to continue to expand the Education Freedom Scholarship program and potentially double the size of it next year. So in terms of overall education funding, that would certainly be a big piece that we'll be keeping an eye on. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Smith.
So Hayden, one of the things that I know that's been affecting that everybody's just got questions on, especially as it comes out of Washington, is the shutdown of the DOE. A lot of that, especially Title I, Title III funding, is moving under HHS. And some of the rules that I'm seeing that could potentially come could actually increase some funding for Title I, Title III. Because of the less bureaucracy. Do we have any insight yet as to what that may look like going into next year, or is there still just a lot more questions than answers at this point?
I think questions more so than answers at this point. As far as I'm aware, I have not heard anything different, and I think it's more just, I think there's a lot of questions even surrounding the entire federal DOE at this point. So I think it's more, we're in kind of a wait and see posture.
Commissioner Griscom.
I'd just like for the record to show that Chair Richards got a 4-year extension much better than I was able to do when I was chair. So I just wanted to put that in the record.
Thank you. I also managed to keep us out of the local news.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions for Hayden? All right. Thank you both for that update. Given the efficiency with which we are moving through our agenda, we're now going to start the Start Appeals overview. And to get that started, I want to recognize Executive Director Tess Stovall and General Counsel Ashley Thomas for a brief overview of the appeal process.
Thank you, Chair Richards. Similar to how we handled it in August, I've asked our General Counsel before we start our discussion just to remind you of your statutory charge, what is considered on the record, and then we will dive into our first appeal.
Thank you. So again, just to remind the commission, you're looking for two things when you're reviewing these applications. There are two questions you want to answer. Does that application meet or exceed the Department of Education's scoring rubric? And is approval of the application in the best interest of the student's LEA or community? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, then you are free to approve that application. When we're thinking about what is considered on the record, as we discussed at our July meeting, we'll start with the executive director's recommendation, which we will go over today. Of course, the application, the capacity interview, wherein commission staff and review committee interviewed the applicant, as well as the public hearing, and that is where we solicited any public comment we heard from the local district, as well as the application sponsor. You will hear responses to the executive director's recommendation. That too is a part of the record, but that is the entirety of the record. Your consideration should be on that record and your own review of that application. And again, just to reiterate for our record, if the application meets or exceeds the standard, if you believe that it is in the best interest of the students, LEA, or community, this commission is free to approve that application.
Are there any questions or comments before we get started?
We have asked to say record one more time.
No, I think we'll hold. Okay, with that, we're going to start with the first appeal, which is from Jackson Museum School. In accordance with Commission Policy 2000, a representative of each side of the appeal has the opportunity to submit a written statement or be recognized for up to 2 minutes in advance of the Commission's discussion on the appeal. Hayden, can you please read any statements received and introduce any representatives who are here today?
Yes, Chair. First, on behalf of Jackson Madison County Schools, is Dr. Teresa McSweeney.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the Charter Commission Board today. I am Dr. Teresa McSweeney, Chief Innovation and Portfolio Officer for Jackson Madison County Schools. We are committed to innovative educational models that provide options and opportunities for our students, as evidenced by our outstanding portfolio of schools. We are dedicated to school choice for families and our open enrollment policy, which allows any family to apply to any Jackson Madison County school. The Jackson Museum School application embraces this spirit of innovation and choice and meets many of the Charter Commission rubric indicators. However, critical areas of deficiency were noted by our charter review team and our school board, particularly for startup operational budgeted costs. In fact, the budget is inadequate in two of the most fundamental components of education: where students will learn and who will be in charge of that learning and safety. The limited number of staff and lack of a reasonable plan for securing and renovating a building raised concern for the Jackson Madison School Board and should be a concern for the Charter Commission as well. So what happens to a charter school with inefficiencies in their budget planning and preparation? According to the Tennessee Department of Education 2024 report, Annual Charter School Report, 32 public charter schools in Tennessee have closed since 2013. That report states that charter schools in Tennessee have an average enrollment of 389 students per school. That's somewhere around 12,000 students, according to the report, over a 10-year period, who were displaced when their charter school closed. While we find this number alarming, fortunately, Tennessee has developed a safeguard to protect our children, a rigorous application process. We implore you to consider all aspects of the rubric when evaluating whether the Jackson Museum School or any organization has submitted an application with evidence to prove that our students will not join the thousands of Tennessee students and families who woke up one day to learn that their charter school had closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, next on behalf of Jackson Museum School is Dr. Jean Little.
Good afternoon. I'll say that again. Good afternoon, members of the Tennessee Public Charter Commission. I am Dr. Jean Little, and I'm the CEO and lead founder of the Jackson Museum School. And as I stand here before you today, my heart is full of gratitude for your time, your wisdom, and your unwavering commitment to expanding educational opportunities across our great state. You've reviewed our vision for Jackson Museum School with the care that it deserves, and for that, we are profoundly thankful. You've seen not just a proposal, but a promise to our community, a promise of innovation, equity, and excellence. I want to extend special thanks to Executive Director Tess Stovall and her team for your positive recommendation and the rigorous yet thorough review of our application. This process has helped us to develop a better school. The vision for the Jackson Museum School is not abstract to me. It's deeply personal. I grew up in public housing in West Kentucky, raised by a teenage mother who dropped out of school after I was born. We moved countless times before I was turned 18, facing the instability that so many families know too well. But education changed everything for me. That's why Jackson Museum School is so important to me. I want to offer the same lifeline to students from low-income families so that no child has to repeat the same obstacles that I had to overcome. In Jackson, our community stands at a crossroad of history and of hope. Jackson Museum School isn't just another school, it's a vital bridge to brighter futures for our youngest learners. As the only museum school in West Tennessee, we'll immerse K through 6 students in hands-on discovery. They will explore artifacts, lead archaeological digs, and curate exhibits as young docents for the neighborhood. Through rigorous academics and deep partnerships with local cultural institutions, we'll spark curiosity, foster collaboration, and bridge opportunity gaps. Thank you so much for your time. We do ask for a vote of yes, and we will take that seriously to lead Jackson Museum School. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move forward with a presentation from Executive Director Tess Stovall regarding Jackson Museum School. Tess, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Richards. As stated, my recommendation for Jackson Museum School is to approve the application. So Jackson Museum School intends to locate within the Jackson-Madison County school system. The application was denied by the Jackson-Madison County Board of Education in July of 2025. And so based on the Commission's rigorous independent review process, I have determined that the application in my assessment does meet or exceed the state scoring rubric. And I do believe it would be in the best interest of the students, the LEA, or the community to approve the application. I did find that, as was stated, the museum school presents a robust and innovative plan, and there's demonstrated capacity, particularly within the school leadership and the governing board, to execute this plan. The academic plan that I found meets or exceeds the standard by offering a thorough and well-researched, innovative museum school model that is not currently offered within the school system. The model seamlessly integrates literacy with student-centered project-based curriculum and character development. Students will engage in 4 9-week thematic units per year with required expeditions with community partners. This model does require a high level of community partnership and engagement. And so one of the things that we were very curious about through our process was whether or not the sponsor has engaged with this level of community partnerships to execute at a high level. We were very impressed by the school's ability to implement this model based on the fact of the number of partnerships within the community that the applicant has already secured, and based on the knowledge and what the expectations of museum schools are to be able to pull off the model successfully. Additionally, we dug into throughout the process the preparation of both the governing board and the school leader to execute a charter school model. And we were incredibly impressed by both the school leadership's deep experience in school leadership, as well as the fellowship that the school leader has been under through BES. So through that experience, they have been able to have multiple residencies in both traditional public schools and charter schools that operate a museum school model, which gave us additional confidence that the blend of both the experience in a traditional school experience as a school leader, as well as the experience of seeing museum schools and charter school museum schools nationally through the support of BES would allow her to lead this school successfully. We found that the academic program effectively addresses special populations. In the capacity interview, this was a significant part of our conversation, and it was demonstrated that both the governing board and the school leadership have a deep understanding of what it means to serve special populations, and we were incredibly impressed with the amount of thought and care that had been put into this plan, particularly around the already planning for external vendors to support the wraparound services that students might need related to their needs. We dug into the sponsors' engagement with the community. As we know, it is incredibly important to have strong community demand, to have been in the community in order to be able to launch a school successfully. In particular, the school shared that they have 80 intent to enroll forms already for grades kindergarten through second grade. The enrollment target, year one enrollment target for this school is 160 students in year one. And when we dug deeper into that, we found that the enrollment projection is higher for kindergarten than it is in first and second grade. And to us, that demonstrates a deep understanding around parent choice, and that is much more likely to see a higher uptick in kindergarten than it is in first and second grade. And that is already built within their model. We did have a lot of conversations with the governing board around their readiness to operate the proposed school and be the oversight body. And ultimately, we found that the operations plan met or exceeded the standard because of the governing board and the facilities and the overall operational plan. And so while the board itself has limited charter school experience, when we had conversations with them in the capacity interview, first of all, there was a deep understanding of what it meant to serve on the governing board. They all had a very clear understanding of the proposed school, their role in oversight and monitoring, and have engaged through BES and other entities to get charter-specific board training so that they're ready to provide that oversight and monitoring of the school. They're all locally based and have deep ties within the community, therefore really helping and bolstering that community partnership experience. One of the things that we also dug into was the startup plan and really support of the school leader in operationalizing the early years of the school. And in the public hearing, the school leader shared that because of secured grants from BES, New Schools Venture Fund, and Charter School Growth Fund, that the school is going to be able to accelerate their hiring, specifically for an office coordinator, office manager, special education director in year zero, that's going to build out that team around the executive director to help launch the school. We also heard in the capacity interview and the public hearing about the facility plan, and we're particularly found it to be strong and realistic given that the top contender site, number one, can support the school at full capacity, that critical updates have already been made to the site, and that really relieved the school of significant renovation. Certainly, whenever you go into a site, you're going to have some minor renovations, but the significant renovations have already been completed by the site. So therefore, we found those renovation costs to be deemed reasonable and aligned within the budget. As we always do, we dig into staffing and staffing patterns and staffing plans. And we felt like they had a deep understanding of the challenges ahead regarding staffing and also pipelines to fill their staffing needs. And finally, we found that the financial plan meets or exceeds the standard for approval. We found that the budget was sound and conservative, that they had deliberately overestimated on expenses while using conservative enrollment projections. Additionally, the philanthropic dollars that the school has already secured strengthens the long-term financial health of the school, demonstrates the ability of the school and the school leader to secure philanthropic grants. We talked about financial oversight both in the capacity interview and in the public hearing, and we found that it was robust, it was multi-layered, it includes a strong finance committee. The school leader plus additional members of the staff are responsible for the day-to-day finances of the school. They are also planning to use a professional back office provider, but understood the expectation to have clear financial oversight on the staff level in addition to the back office provider. And I do appreciate the district's kind of innovative choice model that was shared by the district statement and also very clear in the public hearing. I also want to emphasize that, while I appreciated the review committee's process at the district level, I personally found that it was hard to track how the reasons for denial were surfaced via the review committee and the Board of Education. And so would just provide the feedback to the district that making it very clear what the review committee's findings were, what the district's findings were, and what the board's findings were, so that both the applicant and then on appeal, that there's a really clear paper trail and understanding about the reasons for denial. So ultimately, our assessment and the commission's assessment is on the amended application of Jackson Museum School. I find that the application is robust. It's meeting the standards in all areas. And I do think it would be an innovative educational option for the Jackson-Madison community and would be a value add to the options that are available within the school district. And for those reasons, I recommend that the commission approve the amended application for Jackson Museum School. And I will turn it back over to Chair Richards for the discussion.
All right. Why don't we start first with questions, but if you want to make comments at the same time, be my guest, and I'll recognize Commissioner Eddie Smith.
No surprise, I have questions. So Tess, couple of things, and you addressed it a little bit, but help me understand. So when I looked at the original application, the amended application, and then what our review team went through, all three actually came up with meets or exceeds expectations on all three sections. So help me understand where, and was there any input giving from the school system of how they may have calculated the weighting? Because even when I look inside each one of the rubrics, I'm looking at the academic plan. Only one area partially meets, the other 8 exceeded. When I look at the operations plan, again, 4 out of the 7 meets or exceeds. So did they give any indication of any weighting that they were giving to each one of those to come up with their justification for now the board saying that they did not meet, even though their own review committee stated that they met or exceeded the expectation?
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. I will start, and then I'll turn it to Beth Figueroa for any additional details. That is one of the questions that we ask in a part of the public hearing, was to provide additional information as to how those reasons for denial surface to be enough to deny the application versus just concerns or feedback. I think what we heard from the district was, even though the concerns were limited in sections, they felt like overall that those concerns outweighed the ability for them to approve the application. And then we did ask why some ratings were decreased from the initial application to amended application. The response was that the information that was provided in the amended application resulted in the school district finding that because of that additional information that they would downgrade the rating. I will turn it to Beth to see if there's anything else I missed.
I would just affirm that when we reviewed the record from the district review committee, there was a rubric, and that's how we knew that the review committee found that the academics, operations, and financial section met standard by the review committee itself. However, the documentation that went to the board omitted the summary, the overall rating, and so it was from the review committee's consensus rubric that we were able to identify that the review committee itself said that it met standard. Okay.
And then you touched on it a little bit. Want to dig in a little bit deeper because I want to address concerns that were brought up today between, I think it was Director McSweeney stating that, the facilities were a concern. You addressed that they had something identified. I'm looking in the notes here from the school board where the expectation of $9 to $12 was unrealistic in the amended application. Is that something that you're finding as well, because you stated that you felt like their facility plan was actually very well thought out, that they were on target, and that the renovations needed were well within the budget. So just trying to knock out things to make sure we're looking at everything in its full as we make this decision.
Sure. When we ask about the facility plan, because within the application, there were multiple facility options listed. And then when we got to both the capacity interview and the public hearing, the applicants shared that they had narrowed down and had a top contender. And because that top contender had both, one of the concerns that was laid out that initially was kind of the transition from a temporary facility to a long-term facility, and did the budget capture what is needed to find a permanent facility. But when was shared that the top contender facility not only had recent renovations completed and also could house the school at full capacity, then that completely changes the budget structure and the budget forecast, because now you aren't going to have to think about a long-term capital campaign regarding the facility costs. We found, one of the concerns named by the district was that there was the per pupil amount used was not an accurate amount. That information, we asked where the applicant had received that information. They had received that from the Department of Education. So we felt comfortable with the budget as presented in the facility plan as presented. I think additionally, the fact that there have been significant philanthropic dollars secured by the applicant at this point gives us a lot of comfortability that a budget can fluctuate and that they have the cash flow to manage through any challenges, which we know will occur with any charter school. I will turn it to Beth to see if there's anything I left off there.
Second question, and this was around the teachers. So help me understand, because again, what Director McSweeney said is who would be teaching the kids. But then when I look at it, there's actually quite a good plan in the record for that. We have seen some issues, and I want to address it in a public, with some of the charter schools not having appropriately licensed people teaching schools. But we also know that happens in public schools where they will use substitute teachers for the maximum number of days for a licensed position before they have to have a license during vacancy. So it happens, but, we want to make sure that we're upholding what our statutory charge is. So what do you see as any issues around the staffing and the appropriate staffing personnel within the plan?
Sure. So anytime that we are looking at a new start charter school, and particularly one that is not under a network, we are going to be dialed in on the school leader, the school leadership, and who is actually operationalizing the plan. Who is operationalizing the startup plan? Who is going to be managing the academics within the building? And so that is something that we, in the capacity interview and in the public hearing, we ask a lot of questions about, because it can't just be one person. It has, trying to fill all these roles, it has to be across a multiple teams. And so when we address those questions in both settings, the addition of hiring of office coordinator, special education director, an assistant principal gave us that there will be a full team on the ground in order to implement the launching of the school, as well as there was a clear commitment in understanding the requirements that teachers have to be licensed and certified. There were partnerships already in place or conversations about with local universities, et cetera, to make sure that there was a pipeline of teachers. There were, staffing's an issue. It's an issue everywhere. It's nothing that is new or different for charter schools, but we found that they had a deep understanding. And I think based on their school leadership experience, an understanding about hiring qualified staff, how do you handle a student who enrolls with higher needs, maybe needing to hire a paraprofessional, et cetera, to really ensure that the school is staffed appropriately. Beth, anything else you would want to add there?
I would just echo that as the review committee went through the application, that certainly was an area that the committee leaned heavily into, was acknowledging, and the district acknowledged in their review, just the number of hats that Dr. Little will wear. And that's something we're continually concerned about for any new school. And so with the additional funding, being able to accelerate the timeline of those positions that are going to be supporting her, specifically in special education, that was an area that we wanted to make sure that there was adequate support, as well as in the academic programs, and just the people who run the information system and make sure that vendors are paid. All of those items were able to be touched on and talked about within the capacity review, giving the committee that comfort level that there was the support surrounding Dr. Little to implement the plan.
And final question, I'll turn it back over to Chair Richards and the rest of the commission. And I said I was going to ask you this question back in July, so I wanted to make sure everybody was prepared. Is what, in all the conversations of everything that went through the capacity interview, everything, did you get any sense that the school would not open on time they have put before us?
At this point, no. We have not had any indications that they would not open as scheduled in fall 2026 if approved. I think us hearing about both the updated facility plan with a top contender that is in essence ready to go with some minor renovations, as well as a very clear staffing strategy, gave us a lot of confidence that if approved, the school would be moving right into startup phase.
Okay. For now. Next.
Chair Richards, can I ask a
Smith?
couple questions? Thank you. I just want to go on the record and say, on the whole, I think it's a very strong application. I did have a couple questions. Enrollment, given that some of our schools have not been able to meet their initial goals, wanted to hear if you feel like it's an accurate, achievable projection, especially since it's not just kindergarten, but also first and second grade. And then my second question is about transportation. I believe there's not a plan for buses, which concerned me a little bit, and just wanted to hear, is that a concern for you? How did the committee think about that?
So I'll start with the transportation first. So I do think it's important to note that transportation is not required for approval of charter schools, and there are charter schools across the state that do not offer transportation or offer a much more limited transportation. So in terms of evaluating the transportation model, our discussion was around, number one, their museum school plan would require transportation. So the school has already has both a budgetary plan and an operational plan to contract for transportation for those excursions. Therefore, they would have an ability to access transportation for students who may require it as a part of their IEP or any other needs. Additionally, when we talked to the school about transportation and enrollment, there was a long-term plan that, depending on student population and area and location, et cetera, a desire to provide a greater level of transportation, but wanting to see where they ended up locating, where the students ended up coming from, to then be able to design a transportation program as their budget allows. We did talk about and really dig into community support and demand. We found confidence that they have, number one, both their governing board being from the community and having participated in multiple community events, and really drawing a desire for people within the community to have a charter school option. I think, we're also very upfront and had some very clear conversations that opening a charter school in a district that currently does not have charter schools is an inherent challenge for any operator. And how do you really overcome community understanding about charter schools, education about charter schools, what they are and what they aren't? And so really making sure that was an upfront conversation. I do think, as we've seen, I feel very confident in kind of their understanding of their enrollment patterns. I do think they will very likely see the highest level enrollment in kindergarten, and that's typically what we see when we are looking at our charter schools that are opening multiple grades, is at their highest levels in kindergarten. And then they do have a much smaller amount in first and second grade. So I have confidence that, given where they are laying out their grade spans in their enrollment, that they would be able to hit those targets. And we were able to dig in with them and have an understanding about what is their minimum viability around enrollment, and understanding their budgetary flexibility should enrollment projections change, which we know there's a high likelihood that they will, just as the school gets up and running. And Beth, anything that you want to add from the review committee perspective?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just to add on to the part about if enrollment projections are not met. This is something that we always lean in pretty heavily on in the capacity review to understand what the contingency plans are if they're not met. And something that the committee was particularly impressed with was their ability to articulate very clearly the intentionality, not only by building the budget with assuming high expenses. And so that gives us some buffer. The additional funding gives them some buffer, but also they were able to provide us with specific examples of what would be cut. And those cuts were far from the classroom. They didn't impact safety, all of the things that we know are important to ensure the delivery of the academic plan that's included in the application. So the fact that they could articulate all of those items also gave us the confidence in that the buffer should their enrollment not be met.
Do you have any other questions? All right. Commissioner Marino.
So, two things. Tess, backing up to facilities for a minute, so which we know these can always be challenging and tricky. Do we know on their Plan A facility how far along that is? Is that an acquisition, a lease, kind of where it is in the process?
Beth, we talked about this, and can you remind me where? But the answer is they obviously have not signed a lease yet because they're not improved, right. But it was pending application approval. But Beth, can you share more detail there?
Yes, absolutely. We have a facility timeline that was provided. So upon approval, they are ready to sign the lease, and at that point they would start with the facilities planning and construction documents, submitting for a permit in December. And then upon receipt of that permit, they'd be able to begin construction in the spring and essentially be able to open on time come June, July.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you. And two, you highlighted some partnerships. Two, I'm familiar with National New Ventures and Charter School Growth Fund, which give me a lot of confidence. I know those groups are reputable and do good work. BES, I first thought you were talking about building excellent schools, but it is?
Yes, they've rebranded, and I don't know what their new Build, Excel, Sustain.
Okay.
Is that correct? But it is.
It's BES.
Yes, it is BES. So Dr. Little is a BES
a resident or fellow.
Yep.
Fellow. Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Griscom.
Just have 2 points. I thought it was interesting because we just had a charter school in front of us where a CEO was going to potentially serve almost every position. And we were not comfortable with that and decided not to approve that charter. So when this came up in this application, and to be able to read and listen to the hearings that we had, that while the CEO might continue as a principal, and there were questions raised by the school district about that there was an assistant principal being in year 2. So it was good to see that we were not going to be in the same position where the CEO was going to be sort of serving every position in the school, hoping that somebody might come in and help out. So I just wanted to make that point. The second one to me is a point you made. I think it's really important, and I looked and listened to this as we reviewed this application, having had a charter school previously that we approved. They had to give its charter back. And I did not get a sense within the community where you all live and work and educate that there was leftover issues from that experience. For us, as Commissioner Smith talked about, it helped us, I think, decide to have a little more focus going forward once we approve a school, which we should do. But your point, Tess, that it did not appear that there was any resentment or issues to be able to consider another application for a charter school in Jackson-Madison. So I was glad to see that. Thank you.
Do you have anything? Okay, I'd have one area I'd just like to explore. This is an innovative model with which I had zero familiarity until this appeal came before us. And the whole idea of a museum school was a new concept to me. So in the process of reviewing the application, the capacity hearing, and the public hearing, I learned a lot about this. But I am concerned because the district found that the chosen curriculum is not fully aligned with research-based principles. And I am not an expert on research-based principles or practices, but I would like to make sure, and this is my question for you, Executive Director, is this model one that meets the curriculum requirements of the state of Tennessee?
So the model is in existence in Tennessee. There are museum schools that exist. And I think there's a difference between the model itself and also the curriculum that the proposed school plans to choose, and also the textbooks and instructional materials that they plan to utilize. So I think we did not have any concerns about the model itself because it is a model that schools, traditional public schools, charter schools have used in the past. And then the curriculum choices, their commitment to foundational literacy, commitment to teaching Tennessee academic standards, which was required for all schools in Tennessee, public schools in Tennessee. We had no concerns, and there was a clear understanding that they would be held to the same requirements as all public schools in Tennessee, and that was just not something that we felt like was a reason for denial. We also appreciated the innovative approach to thinking about project-based learning, getting students out within the community. And I think we've even gotten a better understanding about the model within the capacity view, really explaining that, this isn't, a multi-day visit to a site. It's very targeted, it's very limited, it's very connected to what is happening in the classroom. Additionally, that there is specific training that teachers would receive to support them in implementing this model. And I think that was a critical piece that made us feel very comfortable with this plan and this innovative approach.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for addressing the issue of teacher training, because that was going to be my next question. Commissioner Griscom?
I should have mentioned this earlier. In Hamilton County, there is a Normal Park Museum Magnet School, which is a high-performing school. And I just should have missed that. So we've seen it in our community for several decades now.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Eddie Smith?
Well, I see nobody else rushing to the microphone, so I'm going to assume that the deliberation probably is over. So with that, I do want to thank everybody for coming out today, and I appreciate you being able to be here. But with that, I do believe that I can comfortably make a recommendation that we overturn the district decision and approve the Jackson Museum School based on the fact that it meets or exceeds all the state rubric standards, and it's in the best interest of the students and the community, and ultimately that will benefit the LEA. So with that, I make a motion that we overturn the district decision and approve the Jackson Museum School.
Okay, I'll second that. With that, Hayden, can you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Griscom.
Aye.
Commissioner Marino.
Aye.
Commissioner Patterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Eddie Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Lauren Smith.
Aye.
Chair Richards.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes.
Thank you. All right, the motion to adopt the motion is to overturn the denial of the Jackson Museum School and approve it for an issuance of a charter. And we do thank everyone for your time and effort in this matter. We appreciate you coming out today. And maybe we'll just take a 5-minute break before we go to rocket ship and let people who want to leave.
I should have said that, but the magnet school, is
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Get everybody rounded up. We will move on. Everybody's back. Okay, the final appeal we will hear today is from Rocket Ship, Tennessee, number 4. Hayden, can you please read any statements received and introduce any representatives who are here today?
Madam Chair, the following statement was submitted by Rutherford County Schools. Rutherford County Schools recognizes the time and effort expended by Rocket Ship Schools in the application process and greatly appreciates engaging with them in proposing to open a new charter school in our district. As a district that is committed to parent choice and multiple options for how and where to educate children, RCS recognizes the positive impact Rocket Ship Education has made in many other school districts. During the application review process, Rutherford County Schools followed the guidelines set forth in the Tennessee State Board of Education Quality Charter Authorizing Standards and the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission Core Authorizing Principles by rigorously evaluating the initial and amended applications submitted by Rocket Ship Schools, setting high but attainable standards for the approval of charter schools in our portfolio, and granting charters only to applicants that have demonstrated competence and capacity to succeed in all aspects of their particular charter school model consistent with stated approval criteria. The Rutherford County Board of Education's decision to ultimately deny the application for Rocket Ship Tennessee number 4 was based on the recommendation provided by the designated application review committee according to the reasons delineated in their report as follows: concerns regarding the school's academic plan and capacity, lack of demonstrated community support sufficient to ensure a successful opening, past performance of RSE schools not being on par with that of current RCS schools, enrollment challenges experienced by current charter schools in the same geographic location of the proposed school indicate the addition of another charter school would affect not only their initial enrollment, but that of those already in operation. RCS has already approved one additional new charter school to open in the same area beginning in 2026. Again, RCS recognizes the strong organization evident for Rocket Ship Education and admires their efforts to provide quality schools in areas of need for such. However, we do not feel their application at this time presents a preparedness to meet the needs of Rutherford County students. Thank you. Madam Chair, on behalf of Rocket Ship Tennessee number 4, we have Eric Daly.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Members of the Commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Eric Daly, the Executive Director for Rocket Ship Public Schools here in Tennessee. Allow me to quickly acknowledge the dozens of Rutherford families and Rocket Ship families and staff who are unable to be here today. It is fall break this week, and so I stand on their behalf today. Let me also begin by expressing my sincere gratitude for the thorough and transparent appeal process conducted by your staff. Their communication was prompt, their inquiries thoughtful, and their report demonstrates a clear understanding of both our model and track record and the state's charter creation rubric. In response to the recommendation report, I want to affirm a few of the observations noted by Executive Director Stovall. First, parent partnership is one of the 3 pillars of the Rocket Ship model. Every new Rocket Ship school begins with families advocating for it, shaping it, and ultimately helping to open. That's exactly what we've seen in Rutherford County. Rocket Ship Dream Community Prep has received more than 100 applications for families ineligible to attend our schools because they live in Rutherford County. More than 50 parents and community members attended the Commission's public hearing last month, and 174 public comments were submitted in support of our appeal. It's clear that families in Laverne and Smyrna are asking for a Rocket Ship school. I also want to acknowledge Executive Director Stovall's comments regarding the investments that Rocket Ship is making to accelerate learning across all of our campuses, especially those attending Rocket Ship Nashville Northeast. This year, we've added a dedicated math interventionist, we are adopting high-dosage tutoring, and we're strengthening our weekly coaching cycles for teachers. Early enrollment, attendance, and academic data suggests that Rocketship has had its strongest start ever to the school year. And we're confident that our schools will continue to provide families with a high-quality educational experience. In closing, again, thank you for your thorough review of the appeal, and we ask for a positive vote on today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to a presentation from Tess Stovall regarding Rocketship Tennessee number 4. Tess, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Richards. As noted, the final appeal for discussion here today is Rocketship Tennessee number 4, which applied to locate in the Laverne and Smyrna areas of Rutherford County. It was denied by the Rutherford County Board of Education in July of 2025. Based on the Commission's process, and that included the capacity interview and the public hearing and a review of the amended application, I have determined that the application does meet or exceed the standards as outlined in the state scoring rubric, and it is my recommendation that the Commission approve the amended application for Rocketship Tennessee number 4. As was stated, Rocketship has a proven track record of success within Tennessee, and I will get into it further in my recommendation that the Commission is an authorizer of 2 of Rocketship schools within Tennessee, so we are very familiar with their operations. I do want to note that Rocketship has a proven track record of success on the national level as well, being a charter management organization that operates schools in multiple states. We found that both within the amended application as well as throughout our process that it is a strong academic plan that leads to strong student results, particularly for students from special populations. This sponsor has opened several schools within Davidson County and provided a very strong recruitment plan outside of the Davidson County area. We dug into this a lot within both the capacity interview and the public hearing to really understand what was the community engagement, and that also led to the enrollment projections provided within the application such that it would be able to meet those enrollment projections. What we found was a true intention of the sponsor, who has spent over a year within the proposed community building community demand. We also heard and found evidence that there is a number of families who have attended Rocketship schools or have family members who have attended Rocketship schools in the southeast area of Davidson County that have relocated just across the county border into Rutherford County, which is where the school intends to locate. We found that this intentional engagement builds confidence that they would meet their enrollment targets of 250 students in year 1, serving grades K through 4. I do want to note that this is more conservative than the school that they opened under the Commission, Rocketship Dream, which similarly opened K through 4, and I think had about 350 students in year 1. So it is the Rocketship model to open multi-year. So therefore, they deeply understand what that means in terms of a recruitment strategy and an enrollment strategy to meet those enrollment projections. I also believe that the sponsor is well prepared to serve special populations. Number one, due to the experience of the network in serving high special population schools, particularly Rocketship Dream serves one of our highest English learner populations in the Commission. We are very familiar with their process within the school, and they do it very well, and I'll get into their past performance here in a little bit. We had extensive conversations about the staffing model within the capacity interview, as well as the public hearing. And as I said, the closest proximity school to the one that they plan to locate in Rutherford County is the Rocketship Dream School. So the enrollments, the student populations are very similar. And so this network has experience serving multiple types of student demographics, particularly serving English learners and a very high population of English learners. So we talked a lot about what does that staffing look like to execute the academic model. The governing board of Rocketship Tennessee is proven. It is diverse. Within the last year and a half, we have worked with Rocketship Tennessee as their Tennessee advisory board moved to their governing board, and then they are contracting back with the national CMO. This is really important because we wanted to understand both what was the governance at the local level and who would be the kind of the direct oversight of the school, as well as what did that national support look like for opening a new school. We were very impressed with the facility plan, particularly because of the deep experience that the network brings around facilities. So we had a deep conversation in the capacity interview about how they would approach the facility plan, with a plan not to construct a new facility in the beginning, to locate in a temporary facility as they settle into the community and build enrollment, and then to look at for a longer term facility as they get settled, which, based on what we are seeing in the facility market, facilities is the number one challenge that we see schools endure, particularly when we think about schools that are trying to build new facilities and secure land and financing. And so the fact that they were going to be locating in a temporary facility gave us great confidence that the school would be able to open next August. We also found that the sponsor has a financial plan, demonstrates strong budgeting and financial management. The plan outlined a salary and benefit structure that exceeds what's offered in Rutherford County. We also spoke to the applicant about staff within their current network and current schools who have already expressed interest in moving to and serving in the new school should it be open. One of the areas that we spent a lot of time on, both in the capacity interview and the public hearing, was on the past performance of the operator. So anytime an operator that has schools already open and in existence, one of the parts that we are required to analyze is the portfolio summary and the performance of the schools, as well as their operational and financial performance. So first we looked at overall, do we think that this school and this sponsor is demonstrating high academic results? And what we saw is that, number one, we saw strong academic growth, particularly in TVOS, across the 3 network schools. And we also saw that in previous years, there were reward school designations by the State Department of Education. When we looked at the school performance of their Rocket Ship Dream School, which again is the one that's closest to the proposed location. And then we looked at, well, how do the Rutherford County schools in that area perform, and how do they match up? What I found was that there were multiple instances where an overall proficiency and success rate, Rocket Ship Dream outperformed the Rutherford County schools in that area. And then when I looked at, well, what about our special populations? What about our English learners, which again, as we've shared, would be a high population at the school, and those students who are economically disadvantaged? I found that in most instances, the Rocket Ship Dream students outperformed those same subpopulations in the Rutherford County schools. So again, this demonstrates to me that this model would be a value add to the community. We did dig into the performance at Rocket Ship Nashville Northeast. This, again, is a school that is under the Commission's portfolio within the last year. We have had extensive conversations with the school and the school leadership about how are they, in an expansion, going to support opening a new school while also supporting a school that needs to increase its academic growth and academic proficiency. So we appreciated hearing the sponsor speak to how the network was reallocating resources, how they were supporting Rocket Ship Nashville Northeast, an understanding of the importance of improving the performance at Rocket Ship Nashville Northeast, and that is the expectation of the Commission, as well as ensuring that all students under their network experience high quality educational options. Therefore, it is in my assessment that when I think about, is the Rocket Ship model a high quality model and that would offer a high quality option to this area within Rutherford County, I determined that to be yes. And I look very specifically at the experience that we have at Rocket Ship Dream Community Prep, which is one of the highest performing schools in our portfolio, that regularly has very high success rates, as well as high academic growth, and therefore really see this as the potential to be a quality option within Rutherford County. I do appreciate the process and the assessment that Rutherford County took on this amended application. Appreciate the partnership that Rutherford County has had with the commission, but ultimately it is my recommendation that the commission approve the Rockship, Tennessee for an amended application due to what I believe is a high likelihood of success and the high likelihood of it being a quality option for students in the Rutherford County area. And with that, I will turn it over to Chair Richards for discussion.
Commissioner Smith.
All right, couple of questions. One, when I read through a lot of the evaluations that came from the original district's reviewers, one of the recurring themes that I saw and wanted to see if you had had any of that was addressed from the applicant was around RTI. That was frequently brought up as just the lack of planning. And then since we already have Rocket Ship, what is their current RTI structure, and are there any concerns that you have within that whole network?
Thank you. I'm actually going to turn this to Dr. Maggie Lund, who led the review committee, who can speak much more in depth about and also has been on site visit leads to our current schools and can share anything from there too.
Thank you. In terms of the review of the application with RTI, the review committee did bring some of that up within the capacity interview, and the operator was able to satisfy some of the questions that we had regarding RTI in the schedule. In terms of our portfolio of schools and, Rocket Ship's performance within there with RTI, we've had no real concerns at this point in time. We have, from our student supports team, numerous opportunities for us to engage with schools regarding their RTI programming. And at our most recent site visit, which was actually just a couple weeks ago, it looked especially at Dream incredibly strong in terms of RTI and student support. So at this point in time, from both like a portfolio assessment as well as from the application itself, there weren't any major concerns that we had.
And then Tess or Maggie, whoever wants to take this next one. So when I looked at the districts, one of their biggest reasons was around the financial plan. Obviously, our review team has determined that it meets or exceeds expectations. But when I look at it, did they only look at this specific school, or did they look at the whole network? Because it looks like some of the things that they were doing was only limited to this one specific school and not the network as a whole, because they also reference elsewhere in their presentation that there's no track record for this operator, even though there's clearly a track record for the operator.
So when we are assessing the financial stability of an applicant, we are both looking at the projected budget for that school, as well as, and what's required as a part of the application is to provide the network budget, because we want to see both. We want to both assess the viability of the school as alone and understanding when does a school become self-sustainable, as well as is the network in a position to support from a financial perspective and personnel, et cetera, to support the opening of a new school. And so when we analyzed both, we found no concerns. We've also reviewed audits, no concerns from them from a financial standpoint. They have a very sound financial oversight team. And we were very comfortable with both their understanding of operating schools within Tennessee, their understanding of, the expectations around financial standards, as well as the network's ability to open a new school. And Maggie, anything else you'd like to add there?
I would just add from a review committee standpoint, when asking questions surrounding the network budget in particular, some of the projections that they provided were for multiple schools in terms of enrollment. And so we did dig into that in the capacity interview of if opening one school, what those projections would look like. And they did provide further information as to how they were projecting enrollment and their stability over time. And so that quelled some of the concerns of the review committee from that standpoint as well.
One more question and then a statement, and then I'll turn it over. Last question, which is the same one I asked earlier. Any concerns around them opening on time based on everything that we've seen in front of us?
I do not have any concerns.
The last statement, and this is one just to give some feedback, constructive feedback to Rutherford County Schools. in both their initial and amended presentation to the board, they used the same, I don't want to call it fake data, but unsubstantiated data of community support, which looked like it was just a Google poll that was conducted over a 6-week period. So there was no crosstabs, there was nothing that, no validation of that data. But then in the amended, they're referencing back to the original question back in February, even though the amended application was in July. So I would just give the feedback that they might want to be a little bit more cautious about including data that is so old when an amended application is before them, because it looks like they're still claiming lack of community support from 4 months prior on an amended application that's in front of them in July.
Other questions? Commissioner Griscom?
So it was interesting that the Northeast issue clearly came up. It should have come up and was talked about and discussed in great detail. Here's my question. Do you feel that issues at Northeast, change of leadership and things of that nature that they've talked about, are good lessons learned, and as you look at standing up a new school, that those lessons now will be applied so that whatever really went awry at Northeast in this new school, you've learned that and you know where not to go, but the things you all do to make sure this is successful. Because I agree with you about the rocket ship network and the schools that we have, but clearly this issue was there. It was not walked away from, which I was glad to see. But I'm asking you, do you feel like there are lessons that have come out of this and that they clearly know directionally where to go?
Yes. So we dug, both because the school is within our portfolio and also it's a part of the application review, we dug into both the performance at Rocket Ship Northeast and also lessons learned. I think what I appreciated is a reflection not only on staffing, the importance of getting the right school leader and keeping the right school leader. I think really that is what we saw I think part of the success that we have seen at Rocket Ship Dream is the fact that we had a long-lasting school leader, which I think the network would speak to the importance as well as, retention of staff. And we talked a lot about that in the capacity interview and the lessons learned and how they've shifted some of their retention models to retain quality staff, to make it a place where people do want to come and return, because that leads to strong academic results. And so I think we were very pleased to see that on the most recent TVOS data, that Rocket Ship Northeast received a TVOS of a 3, which, that is our minimum bar expectation, but at least shows us that we are making academic gains, even though they're not from a proficiency standpoint where we want them to be. And also that the network very clearly understands the commission's expectation that Rennie is, under the microscope, and that we expect academic performance, and that if there's not continued academic growth, that we would move to an intervention status.
Commissioner Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make one or maybe a couple of comments. Just from my personal experience, I've had the opportunity to visit Rocket Ship in California, and then obviously our visits as a commission, and have always been impressed with the performance and also the model. So super excited to see that this model is continuing to flourish and thrive. And then I think the second comment or point is I want to acknowledge how difficult it is to bring a model into a new state. And this is one of the few operators that has been able to do so in our state, and certainly we can all name operators that have not had as much success. And so I do want to highlight the fact that seeing the model for myself, but then also acknowledging the way that they're able to adapt the model to our communities is something that is really powerful and gives me great confidence in being able to approve this Rocket Ship number 4. Thank you.
Okay, I have just a couple comments. First of all, I do want to commend Rutherford County for their handling of this application process. Their record was very thorough. It was easily understood. You could determine how they came to the conclusions that they did and what was the factual basis for those conclusions. And even though I ultimately will disagree with their final conclusion, they did an excellent job, and I appreciate that because I know it makes it a lot easier for us as commissioners to sort through the controversy that surrounds each of these appeals if we have good records. That being said, this was a very close vote for the Rutherford County Board. And I think they struggle because they're in an area where the demographics of their community are changing because of the economic pressure on people who are needing to live in close proximity to Nashville, which is becoming increasingly unaffordable. And a significant number of the economically disadvantaged families are finding it impossible to continue to remain in Davidson County. And I was very struck by the number of community support letters that came from parents who had a rocket ship experience in Davidson County, but we're now in Rutherford County and we're looking for a rocket ship alternative. So I think that their support in their community is significant. And if you look at Rutherford County's numbers, they are facing a tremendous growth across all of their schools, and they need additional seats. And I think that especially for special populations and English learners, Rocket Ship is a very demonstrated successful model for providing growth and proficiency for these students. So I feel very confident in the work that's been done by Rocket Ship, and I just want to thank everybody involved in this appeal. And with that, are there any other comments? Commissioner Eddie Smith.
No comments, but I see no other lights. So assuming there's no other comments, I'll make a motion that based on our own team's review of the record, that it meets or exceeds expectation, and that I do believe that it will be in the best interest of the students and the community, that we overturn the Rutherford County School District to approve the rocket ship number 4 in Rutherford County.
Second.
All right. Hayden, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Griscom.
Aye.
Commissioner Marino.
Aye.
Commissioner Patterson.
Aye.
Commissioner Eddie Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Lauren Smith.
Aye.
Chair Richards.
Aye.
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes.
The motion to adopt the resolution is passed, and we will, that's kind of the end of our day for today. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Tomorrow we will hear the remaining 4 appeals. Are there any final comments from anyone? Okay, seeing none. I will note that we are going to resume at 8:30 tomorrow morning in this room. And with that, do I have a motion to recess?
Only if there's coffee.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're recessed. Yeah, I'm sorry. We need to clear the room because we're going to have a really brief executive session with our general counsel.